Okay, and welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. I'm Jared, and thank you so much for being here. We got a lot to talk about. It's December 2nd. Winter is here officially. It was 22 degrees in my hometown this morning, but the political environment is still raging. It is hot. It's really hot because Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter, which is huge news, despite us being told for the past year that that wasn't going to happen. Surprise, surprise, we were lied to. And he pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. Kash Patel was tapped as the FBI director. That's Trump's nomination. This is huge because there were two names in the social media world that everybody wanted to see. Above all others, they wanted to see Matt Gaetz as the attorney general and Kash Patel as the director of the FBI. We got one, not the other. I'll take it, but it would have been great to go 2 for 2 on those two nominations. We got some great ones, though, Pete Hegseth and all of that, and we're going to talk about The View and their attack of Pete Hegseth. But I'm also going to talk about kind of this troubling social contagion that's going on. There's a lack of, I think a lot of people would recognize, especially Christians would realize, there's a lack of faith in something higher than the federal government. When people put their faith in the federal government, they start really freaking out about the election of someone like a Donald Trump. And there are reports now of women who are going out and sterilizing themselves ahead of the Trump presidency. They have bought into this narrative that Trump is going to destroy their lives simply because they are women, simply because they are pro-choice women, whatever it happens to be. But this is a social contagion. And oddly enough, thankfully enough, there's been a move in the opposite direction to say, look, I can't look at the government as my higher authority. There's got to be something bigger and better out there. And this has led to a massive uptick in the number of Bible purchases in America. Really, really interesting. And I think it's a insanely positive sign. But that is going to be the antidote to our social contagion of Trump derangement syndrome and thinking that your ultimate not ultimate authority, but that your rights are derived from the federal government, not from God. People are being awoken. They're being woken up and realizing that there is a higher power, and so I need to go find that higher power. I need to search it out, and as a result, Bible sales have absolutely surged over the past year. So sales of Bibles in the United States have surged 22% through the end of October compared to the same period last year. This rise comes despite overall print book sales increasing by less than 1%. People are buying less of the fiction and the nonfiction, but Bibles are through the roof. And so according to the report by the Wall Street Journal, citing data by Circana Bookscan, experts and industry insiders attribute the growth in Bible sales to societal anxieties and a search for hope. Quote, people are experiencing anxiety themselves or they're worried for their children and their grandchildren, Jeff Crosby, president of the Evangelical Christian Publishers Association, told the Wall Street Journal. It's related to artificial intelligence, election cycles, and all of that feeds a desire for assurance that we're going to be okay. Bethany Martin, manager of Faith and Life bookstore in Newton, Kansas, noted that many of her customers are first-time Bible buyers. They're looking for hope with the world the way it is, and the Bible is what they're reaching for. I mean, this is an unbelievably positive sign, if you want my honest opinion. And if you're looking for hope, it tells us that you're not going to find it. People are realizing they're not going to find it on TikTok, and they're not going to find it on Instagram. Now, they may find people that are delivering the Bible, that are delivering a faith-based message, but that ultimately is not where you find your hope. You find your hope in the words of God, in Jesus Christ. And so this is this brings me to a separate point, that Bibles in particular, because I'm going to ruffle feathers, but this is just the way. I'll give you a Christian's perspective that not all gods are the same. Oprah had said once before in an interview that, I believe there's multiple paths, to the same truth, and that's just not the way it is. There is one path, and that path can be found in the Bible, and it's making a resurgence, and that can only be a net positive for our country. I've also seen this with podcasts. There's a real explosion in the number of podcasts, secular podcasts, that are referencing God. A big name was Russell Brand and his conversion to Christianity and his baptism. And this guy was a former drug addict, a former sex addict, obviously a comedian. He was a guy that had a very checkered past, but with a family, with kids. He has found God, and this is an overall net positive for his life. George Janko is another one. Jake Paul has dabbled in it. Jordan Peterson, who's notoriously just an intellectual, but he has spent years of his life researching the Bible, and to the dismay of a lot of people, he never comes out and openly claims where he stands on it. But if you listen to him talk, his interaction with God has been something, especially after the miraculous healing of his wife, it's been something that's impacted him greatly. Some curiosity has been shown by Joe Rogan. Of course, you have the kind of the tried and true folks like Michael Knowles, Cliff and Stuart, I forget how to pronounce his name, Connectly, I believe is how you pronounce it, and Charlie Kirk. These people are the more outward members of Christian society, who are getting, combined amongst all those people, billions and billions and billions of views. And this is blanketing the social media algorithms with a Christian message, and I believe this is one of the largest contributing factors to this. So we can talk about politics, and we have to know what's going on in the world, but we can't put we have to be able to put all that in a moral context, and we can't simply use the Constitution alone or our Bill of Rights, alone to help us frame all of this. We have to understand that in our world, there is a right and a wrong. There is a good versus evil. There is moral and there is immoral. And this has been true forever, but there is good in the Word of God, and people are starting to realize that. And they're realizing it can only be found in one place. You can find parts of other religions that are good, but the one that is wholly completely end-to-end good is Christianity. You could find Islam has some redeeming qualities about family and discipline and charity, but the violence and authoritarianism that goes with things like Sharia law, that's a non-starter, and it's a non-starter in particular in America. Something can't be forced upon you as it requires in that religion. Much the same with Hinduism. There's peace and there's faith, but it's a monotheistic as opposed to it's a polytheistic rather than a monotheistic. Golly. And it's very ritualistic. But, you could say, well, deists, what about being a deist? Well, deist takes out the core component of Christianity, which is a personal relationship with God. You can't have this cosmic clockmaker who just sets things in motion and lets it roll, and whatever happens, happens, and he has no say in it. Christ making the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice for us on this earth, is the ultimate act of selflessness. And giving his life for us, that embodies a sacrificial love that exists nowhere else in any other religion. And so I say all that to say that having this revealed to multiple people and having a 22% increase, which is huge, 13.7 million people have already bought Bibles as of October of this year. The previous one, Bible sales had reached 14.2 in all of 2023. So there's a huge uptick, and it's going to continue to grow. More and more people coming that way. And if we're going to fight these social contagions, as I was referencing in the open, women are sterilizing themselves after Trump's victory over fear he'll target their reproductive rights. This is the type of erratic behavior that you get when people don't have a true moral framework. If they actually believe what Joy Behar is telling them, then this is what you get. If you don't look any higher than political pundits, this is the type of paranoia that's created. They say, if I am to be denied any rights in the next 4 or more years, I will not give them up without a fight, said a woman who's 28 years old. A 28-year-old, imagine thinking that that's what's going on in the world. I am keenly aware of the people he keeps around him and in his ear, who all seem to see women as incubators and possessions to subjugate. Incubators, presumably meaning they're good for nothing more than having kids, as if that's a bad thing, by the way. But this is the modern feminist movement. This is all these things that have told people, oh, you're just an incubator for children. The more important thing is that you go out and you get a job making $50,000 a year doing PowerPoints for somebody. That's what's really important. But this one, when I read it, I was like, this is a good thing. And I say that as a person who needs to read even more than I actually do in the Bible. I do my daily Bible verses. Get the Bible app. It's a great place to start, by the way. But anyway, so let's go on. Let's move on from this one. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the big news, Hunter Biden. Oh boy, nobody is above the law, said every single pundit out there. Nobody, and I'll play this video just to remind you that we've been told this for a while. Nobody is above the law. Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
Unless you're the president's son. Unless you're the president's son. This again, it kind of harkens back to that same point I was making before. This is why you don't look at the government as your ultimate authority. We've forgotten that the Constitution is it's supposed to be a bulwark against a large federal government, an overreaching federal government. That our rights come from God. They're given to us at birth because when given power and given authority, people who break the law will get, as long as their parents are the right parents, they will get preferential treatment. And that the politicians themselves will lie to us. They will lie to us because they are human. They are fallen people. We can't, say that we're, faultless. But these people will spout overt lies to us for political purposes, for the purpose of power.
If he's convicted.
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of.
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. We go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
Nope. Lie. So don't let anybody tell you there's not a two-tiered justice system. There absolutely is. If you have the right person in power, you are above the law. 100%. Flip the script on this, too. If Donald Trump was pardoning Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump for the same crimes, drug possession, trafficking, and, gun possession, prostitution, all of those things, lying on a federal gun application, on a federal background check, and he pardoned him, what do you think the response would be? I think we all know. Even if you're on the left, you know exactly what the response would be. And so if you want to know why people are frustrated and why we wanted someone like a Matt Gaetz to be the attorney general, or we wanted a Kash Patel to be director of the FBI, this is why. And not because those people would have anything to do with a presidential pardon, but because we have seen a two-tiered justice system. These are outward examples, when it comes to Hunter Biden getting a pardon. But there are backroom hidden examples, things that we can see on the fringe, right? With the use of the Justice Department against Donald Trump, the use of the Justice Department against pro-life advocates, the 76-year-old woman who's in prison for 2 years because she was peacefully standing in front of an abortion clinic. The use of the FBI to go after parents at school board meetings, to surveil parents at school board meetings. We were told this is justified. And we were told that if Donald Trump, by the way, ever did this, pardoned his family or any of those folks, that there should be an outcry over that. This would be horrible. This would be a miscarriage of justice. And people have, this is, again, the hypocrisy of the left. See, on the right, this is the difference. On the right, we have a harder case to make because they will bring charges against Donald Trump for no reason. He will be found innocent of things, or in some cases found guilty of things that we know to be fabrications. Just use the Mar-a-Lago as an example. Saying that Mar-a-Lago, $400, $500, $600 million property is only worth $18 million, and he defrauded a bank, even though the bank got all their money. This is just the use of the justice system to try and crush a political opponent. But for him to do it, for him to pardon somebody, it would be looked at one way, and then all along the way, these liberal pundits have told us that this is, oh no, it shouldn't be done. It'll never happen. It shouldn't be done. But then once it is done, they say, no, it's just fine. Harry Sisson is a prime example of this. He's part of the failed youth, not the good ones that are leaning more conservative. But Harry Sisson said, hey, Donald Trump, nobody is above the law in the United States. And then shortly thereafter, President Biden has officially pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. His full statement is below. I fully agree with this decision. So you can't be above the law if you're of the opposite political party. But if you're in my party, no, it's perfectly fine to be above the law. And this point was made very beautifully by Kayleigh McEnany. Kayleigh McEnany was talking about this, the same folks I was referencing before, the lady out in front of the abortion clinic. Listen to this.
A father wanting to pardon a son. I understand that. I don't understand the lying. I don't understand how the Merrick Garland DOJ raids Melania's closet and then Biden's White House pardons his son. There seems to be a huge disparity there. I think when you look back on this, when history looks back on this, you're going to see a legacy of injustice. It was not just the raid on Mar-a-Lago that happened under Garland, the prosecutions of Donald Trump. It was also the radical Catholic memo from the FBI. It was Paulette Harlow, 76-year-old. Look, I can't get her face out of my mind. She's sitting in a jail right now, 2-year sentence for being in front of an abortion clinic, standing there peacefully. Her husband's devastated, thinks she's going to die in jail, but Hunter Biden gets a pardon. A lot of people don't understand the disparity, and that legacy of injustice is going to sear into the minds of people, not just the feelings of a father to a son, which every parent can understand.
Yeah, I get it. Every parent can understand that. But at the same time, there has to be some accountability. Yeah, when you break this many laws, when you use the fact that your father is a successful politician, I mean, we could successful as a as far as politicians go, I guess he was successful. He managed to stay in it for 50 years. But to leverage your father's power and influence to get away with felonies, numerous felonies, that's not teaching this. I mean, this is a 50-something dude who needs to be taught a lesson. Pardoning him and saying, well, I can get you off on this one. For the past decade, by the way, of crimes that he had committed, that's not helpful to him. That's not helpful to a country who is still scornful over this multi-tiered justice system that benefits the elites, benefits the rich, and doesn't benefit the little guys. I mean, this sends the completely wrong message. So they say, oh, well, he suffered with drug addiction and he lost his brother. And then he went out and he had a romantic relationship with his dead brother's wife. Tell me that's not strange. And now the Democrats are coming out and supporting this, saying, yeah, no, I think this is fine. I think this is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff, in case you didn't know, had put forward legislation to prevent this very thing when it came to Donald Trump.
Scooter Libby, Congressman, has inspired you to propose new legislation. What exactly would it do?
What it would do is say that in the event the president pardons anyone in an investigation in which the president is a witness, a subject, or the target, those investigative files will all be turned over to the Congress. The Congress ought to know whether the president is using the pardon power to obstruct justice. The American people have a right to know. I think it is clearly constitutional. It doesn't prohibit him from granting a pardon, even a pardon he shouldn't grant. But it does say that we will be able to at least find out whether the president is using this power to shield himself from liability.
So there you go. Adam Schiff was doing the very same, was trying to avoid Trump doing the very same thing. When Biden does it, it's perfectly acceptable. This is a two-tiered system. It's a two-tiered system. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to bring up is Bernie Sanders. Actually, this is interesting. Bernie Sanders, not my favorite politician, do not like the guy, but he is actually siding with Elon Musk. He's saying that he's right about government waste after the Pentagon fails its 7th straight audit. So 7 times in a row, the Pentagon has failed its audit. So the Pentagon with about, well, let me go start this. So Bernie Sanders posted to X on Sunday where he criticized defense spending and agreed with billionaire mogul Elon Musk. He said, Elon Musk is right. The Pentagon, with a budget of $886 billion, just failed its 7th audit in a row. It lost track of billions. Last year, only 13 senators voted against the military-industrial complex and a defense budget full of waste and fraud. That must change. So, to his credit, Bernie Sanders understands that there is waste and abuse. Now, the difference is, We don't want to add any. See, he wants to say, well, let's find the $10 billion so that I can put it over into another program. We say we want to stop the $10 billion and not replace it because we can't keep spending at this level. So yeah, Bernie Sanders says there's a ton of fraud, waste, and abuse. He has other plans for that money. We as conservatives say, well, that needs to be taken off. We need to get that out of our debt. Stop adding or get that out of our deficit so that we can stop contributing to our debt. The post comes after a decision by incoming President Donald Trump, who appointed Musk and former presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy as heads of the Department of Government Efficiency, which will seek to weed out excess regulation, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies. And I cannot wait for that to happen. For years now, the Pentagon has been unable to balance its budget. In 2022, the Department of Defense could not account for 60% of its assets. Let me repeat that. In 2022, the Department of Defense could not account for 60% of its assets. This is when you have an organization that's that big, and it becomes this when you're talking about $886 billion. That is about 2.5 Elon Musk's, right? And SpaceX and Tesla, because he's worth I think it's like 300 billion now. But if somebody came to Elon Musk and said, this whole division of your company, we kind of lost about 20% of this, and then another person who's in another division of his company, one of his companies said, we're missing about 30% of this. We don't exactly know where that money went. Do you know what would happen to those people? They would be done. You can't run a private company like that. Instead, you have people that just, they see this as ones and zeros. They see it as just dollar figures that don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things because it's only a few million here. It's only a few hundred million here. We're talking out of 886 billion, right? It's a small piece of the pie. Everybody's little piece of the pie, and it's all poorly managed by subpar government employees, and some of it to fraud, waste, and abuse. You can't run an actual company like that. And so this is a prime example of an organization becoming so big and so wasteful that only drastic change will fix it. And that's what DOGE, if they want to go after something, the DOD budget is one place, because they will tell you, oh, if you cut our budget, we're not going to be able to defend our country. They could defend our country on a fraction of what they're receiving right now. Guarantee it across the board. You could shave 25% out of the DOD budget, and we are still going to be the number one superpower in the world. That's just a fact. We're not going to have as much wasteful spending. They'll have to actually balance the books. They'll have to be diligent with every dollar that they spend. They'll have to be intentional with every dollar they spend. But they don't want that because it's far too easy to just throw the $880 billion around, $886 billion, and that has to stop. This is how we got a $1.5 trillion deficit and $34 trillion in debt. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to accountability. I'm looking forward to cutting. Not because I don't want us to have the best military in the world. I absolutely do. But I want them to stop wasting our money, wasting our kids' monies. And another person, as I said before, who's going to bring us some amazing accountability to an organization that desperately needs accountability, and that is Kash Patel. So left-wing voices are lashing out over President-elect Donald Trump's nomination of Kash Patel as FBI director, as many try to claim that this choice threatens the Bureau's independence and stability. MSNBC political analyst Tim Miller describes Patel as, quote, the most dangerous nominee that we've seen yet to our democracy. Other commentators on the network echoed concerns by alleging that Patel's leadership would undermine longstanding constraints on the FBI, with Tim Nichols calling the pick preposterous and yet extraordinarily dangerous. I might actually, let's play this video because I love hearing them complain about it. And the point I will make about this is, why would you push back against somebody who wants to reform a government agency? Unless, one, you believe that government agency needs even more power and more authority, or two, you realize that agency sides with you politically, therefore it's advantageous for it to stay just as it is, so it can be used as a weapon against your political opposition. That's what I think the case is. But let's listen to these brilliant minds on MSNBC.
Having that type of personality in your next term, it just completely obliterates any recognition or culpability for anyone who was involved in that riot, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Donald Trump's been trying to erase history and retcon that whole business into, just another day in Washington. And unfortunately, he's been somewhat successful trying to memory hole at least some of it. But Patel is, and I think Tim is absolutely right, when it comes to the danger to our democracy, Patel is about as dangerous as it gets. Not because he's that much of a true believer in anything, but because, and I would recommend that people take a look at a piece that we had about him in The Atlantic. He believes in nothing except serving Donald Trump, except his own interest. And what you're going to see is Donald Trump creating an administration of people who really don't care about the interests of the United States, that they're there to build an authoritarian cadre and to put themselves beyond the reach of the rule of law. And if
okay, let's talk about something here. The entrenched power is not Donald Trump. The entrenched power is not Kash Patel. The entrenched power is the FBI. It is the CIA. It is the intel community. It is the military-industrial complex. So they are saying that it is authoritarian. It's authoritarian in nature to do away with the people who want to disrupt the authoritarians. Yeah, and understand how backwards that is. People that remain in Washington, D.C., making 7-8 figures a year, tons of money, of our tax money, by the way, paid for by us, by we the people, through the military-industrial complex, through the lobbyists, that we have a corrupt federal agency known by most Americans to be corrupt, that has been weaponized against political opposition, and yet the people that want to disrupt that are the authoritarians. But let that sink in for just a minute. The people who raided the house of the former president of the United States, the ones who showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning to people's homes, like Roger Stone, who, by the way, people who voluntarily said, others who said, no, I will turn myself in. And they said, no, don't do that. People like Steve Baker, he said, I'll show up whenever you want me to. And, but then they didn't do a 6 a.m. raid on Steve Baker. But other folks they have done these 6 a.m. raids on, ones who said, I'll be cooperative, fine, I'll show up whenever you want me to show up. Nope, they need the optics of raiding their homes with SWAT teams, guys in tactical gear, weaponized for political gain across the board. And yet, if you want to disrupt that, you're an authoritarian. Boy, imagine being that deranged. Because I really can't. I can't imagine being that deranged. And I can't imagine wanting the government to maintain that level of power and authority. It's really quite wild. But they've got plenty of spokespeople. The folks on The View, the ladies on The View, this is a great mashup of, culture's fighting back. And folks are now filing lawsuits against them whenever they disparage them or they anytime there's libel against folks like Matt Gaetz or Pete Hegseth. So they go after them, and now they've got a legal team who's feeding in their ear these legal briefs. They pop up something on a teleprompter to make them, basically so they can't go after them legally. Listen to this.
So you have to read this thing.
Oh, I've got a legal note. I do have a quick legal note.
You got to milk this cow.
Yes, I have a legal note.
You have a legal note again.
Oh, I do.
Honey.
Wow, another one.
I
have two legal notes.
Ginny denied any conflict of interest between her activism and her husband's work on the Supreme Court.
Well, she doesn't talk to him at night.
That's my legal notes. But let me say this very quickly. Ginny Thomas has denied any conflict of interest between her activism and her husband's work.
You got a
legal
note.
I have a legal note. Trump denied Esper's claims about wanting to shoot protesters. I have a legal note. Simon Lviv denies serial fraud and said he would proceed with a lawsuit for defamation. Congressman Loudermilk has denied any wrongdoing.
You have a legal note.
Roy Moore and Representative Matt Gaetz have denied any wrongdoing.
Uh-oh, here's another one.
Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo-Nazis and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
But you let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited. We apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on these points.
My bad.
I mean, just one thing after the other. Lie. That Charlie Kirk supports neo-Nazis, that Pete Hegseth and that whole mess. Matt Gaetz, things that have been investigated and found to be false and having no merit. They run with them anyway. The lawyers get involved, but this is part of their shaping the narrative. They lie. It's far too common. And thankfully, we've got folks now with resources. You know, Charlie Kirk, you can try to libel Charlie Kirk, but the guy brings in, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars into his nonprofit. He's got the resources to fight back against it. And that's what people are doing. And the lawyers know that they're going to, once you get an Elon Musk involved, who would probably, and these powerful super PACs that we're building now on the right to help push our message, we have the means, we have the ability to fight back. They don't have a monopoly on it. They don't have a monopoly on information because we have X and we have Rumble and we have other platforms where people can get actual information, what's actually happening. They don't control the narrative, and it's driving them nuts. And I love it. And it makes me happy. It makes me happy for you guys, because now you all get the facts. You get the actual data, the actual information, and you can make your own decisions. You can decide that what I'm saying is wrong. You can offer me a retort down in the comment section. I welcome it. But until the next time, thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave some comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys. God bless you. God bless America.